Hey everybody, what's going on? Brian Engelman here. You are viewing, listening to, enjoying an episode of The Unhappy Hour here at the TNAM Radio Network here at thenewamericanmedia.com. Over in this camera, we are live on Facebook. What's up, Bob? Can we trade the drum line for some cheerleaders? Okay, I will ask that question of Brandon in just a moment here. I like the question. I'm going to like that. So type your comments below. We'll get to them. And if you're watching after the fact on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia, thank you very much. If you're watching some other way and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. And if you're watching this on vid.me/thenewamericanmedia, it's kind of like the YouTube alternative now that YouTube is censoring so many things and really messing up. Kind of a good thing. We have switched over. We're at vid.me/thenewamericanmedia. And most importantly, perhaps, where most of our stuff is accomplished at The New American Media for The Unhappy Hour, it's in our private Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. And as long as we can verify that you're either an Indians, Cavs, Browns, or Buckeye fan, we're going to let you into the club, and you're going to enjoy what 1,000 other people are digging into. It's hilarious. The memes that come through, the breaking news, the conversation, the witty banter, the mostly civil arguments that will occur from time to time. It's a great community of sports fans. We cover, obviously, local things for the people that were raised in Northeastern Ohio or Ohio in general like me. But we also cover the national stories when it's relevant. So definitely link up with us there. And Instagram.com. That's the last one I'm going to plug. Instagram.com/thenewamericanmedia. That's our regular page. You'll find our politics and our sports there. But we just started. It's a specific sports page on Instagram. It's Instagram.com/theunhappyhour. So click on that, link up with us there. That's just going to be all the sports, none of the politics, except when the politics jump into the sports. So moving on, this is an episode, this is a show, this is a yearly occurrence that we do with our special guest, Brandon Odell. I was just telling him off air that we have known each other for 20 years now. And we were talking high school reunions, joking that he probably knows more people from, how did you phrase that, Brandon?
I said that I would probably walk into your high school reunion and be friendlier with more people that you graduated with than would I be people that I graduated with. Not that I have like a general dislike for my graduating class or anything like that. I just tended to have friends that were either a little older or a little younger than me. I didn't have a whole lot of friends right from my immediate graduating class.
Yeah, and over the years you've definitely met a lot of my crew that I've stayed in touch with, and it's a small world. It's a fun time. Brandon and I were roommates for many years over in Bowling Green State University, and definitely have had many sports conversations over the years. So it's always good. Brandon is a season ticket holder through his family with the Cleveland Browns. Very few people get as amped for football as him, and so I always look forward to our season preview show. However, over the past 19 years, it's been a pretty bad joke being a Browns fan. It's been pretty brutal having 27 quarterbacks since they've come back. It's pretty bad, but I get the sense that things are about to turn around. But then again, I'm the eternal optimist with the Browns. I always expect us to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. So, Brandon balances that out and walks us through the nuances of what's going on with the team. So, Brandon, thank you very much for joining us again. We're going to do this. Here, we're going to crack a beer as we crack into a brand new season of football. So, Brandon, where do we want to begin? Do we start with the quarterback? Do we start with the coaching staff? Do we start with the draft picks? Where would you like to begin this one?
Let's start with the quarterback. I think that's always where all of the vast majority of the Cleveland Browns questions revolve yearly around the quarterback. So here's a question for you right away. You had mentioned the 27 different starters. Does that mean that DeShone Kizer is the 27th, or is he in fact the 28th?
He's 27. We have 26, okay, and then it'll be 27. Okay. I think that's what it is. I'd have to double check, but I think.
Okay, all right. Well, DeShone Kizer, then. Lucky number 27.
Exactly. Is that a lucky number these days?
Well, it is a prime number. I'm trying to remember what the right term for it is.
9 times 3.
3 times 3 times 3 would equal 27. So
so that's 3 cubed.
Prime number means that nothing else can be
Divisible.
divided into it or whatever. But what would be the term if it is like, it can be, tripled, if you get what I'm saying. Let's have some of your math people call in. Anyway, we'll call it a lucky number because I feel pretty confident that Kaiser is a bit different than some of the others. Certainly I think he's the antithesis of Johnny Manziel in terms of physical ability and just in terms of the type of human being he seems to be so far and in where his priorities are. So I think that just that in itself, considering that the last time we had a high pick at quarterback, it did bomb so spectacularly. I think that Browns fans just are excited about just having a young kid who is excited about coming to work and trying to be the best he can be. I saw an interesting stat that he is the fourth youngest quarterback to start opening day in the history of the NFL.
Wow.
Can you name any of the other three?
Jameis Winston.
He is one.
I saw the stat too, but Winston was the only name that registered with me. Let me see if I can. Let me ask you this: are they all within the past 20 years?
Yeah, actually they are, and all three of them have had pretty decent careers.
Oh, whoa. Okay. You know what? You're gonna have to give it to me. I would guess maybe. Man, I'm trying to remember.
First. Oh, and one of them is another number one overall pick.
Andrew Luck?
No. In the NFC. Actually, no. Let me rephrase that.
All right.
Both of the other two are the top overall pick. So I guess he's the only one out of the four who is not Deshaun Kaiser is. So both of the other two, now that I'm thinking about it, were the number one overall pick their year. One is still playing, and one retired within the last 4 or 5 years.
Whoa.
NFC, number one overall pick, quarterback.
Cam Newton.
No. Matthew Stafford.
Oh, okay.
And the other one, Mike Vick.
Oh, Michael Vick, okay.
So some decent company to be in there in terms of, those were all people who not only had potential for such a young age, you'd consider them to be precocious athletes at that point, but were able to have success and in all three cases, I guess the jury is still out on Jameis Winston, but you would consider them to be bona fide NFL good solid quarterbacks.
Yeah,
at the least.
Absolutely, and I think you're right that Kaiser seems to have a different kind of head on his shoulders. I mean, Hugh Jackson has been talking about like he's put the work in to learn the playbook. He's really put his head down and done the work. Started at the third string, went to second string, went to first string, and then he won the job. I mean,
yeah.
What do you have you had a chance to watch all of the preseason games?
No, I did not. I did not get a chance to watch any of this game this past Saturday. We were actually at a John Mayer concert in Cincinnati.
Was he jamming with the Grateful Dead?
No, it wasn't Dead and Company. It was his solo act, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I heard he's crushing it with that group, by the way.
We have also seen him several times with Dead and Company. We saw them at the beginning of the summer at Blossom. So, yes, we've seen him in both of his current incarnations.
Well, in the last game, there was a lot of rain. Kenny Britt dropped a pass that was pretty much destined to continue that drive that settled for a field goal. He looked okay. Maybe the quarterback rating wasn't great, and yeah, maybe he forced one in that got picked off. But you just watch him, and he's one of the earliest drives. It was a lot of, okay, comes the third down, and he's moving the sticks. He's putting the ball in places for Kenny Britt and Corey Coleman, making some good throws right where it's supposed to go and kept the sticks moving for a little bit, and some of those
Yep.
sustained drives, we have seen a lot of 3-and-outs from the Cleveland Browns over the past couple of decades. It was nice to see. It just, I figured after the first game watching Deshaun Kaiser that he has all the tools necessary. Of course, he's got to learn the playbook. He's got to learn the nuances. I don't want him to run too much and take too many hits, but those two 50-yard passes in the first preseason game, one for a touchdown and one ended up at the 1-yard line. I mean, with ease, launching these bombs that keep the defense honest, which opens up the running game in the middle passing attack. And I'm really excited. The kid looks like a real quarterback. He looks like an
Yeah.
NFL quarterback. When is the last time a Browns quarterback has looked and felt like an NFL quarterback? Well, how far back would you go? I know.
I mean, I guess you would have to go to. I mean, I thought that Hoyer there for a while, and
For a minute.
what would that have been the 13 season before he got hurt, and then in that 14 season when they went 7-9, before they kind of sputtered out toward the end. But I thought that we had pretty solid NFL quarterbacking at that point.
Yeah, but he was always an undersized, kind of scrappy QB. I mean, like a guy that
Yeah,
looked the part. Maybe Derek Anderson for that one season. Maybe back to
yeah.
Vinny or Holcomb. I mean, are we going back to Bernie? Last time we've had a legit QB. It's the fact that we got to think this hard while the Patriots have had Tom Brady for 2 decades. It puts it into perspective a little bit how important the position is. And I mean, Hugh Jackson, he's the quarterback whisperer. You hope that he's going to be able to coach these guys up, and they have the faith in him. So, I mean, are you confident they're making the right decision here, or would you rather have him sit and wait and learn?
Oh no, put him out there, let him learn, or let him learn while he's playing. I think that there's no substitute for game experience. But based upon past history of the Browns for the last 3 or 4 years, the better question, rather than simply saying, how do you feel about Kaiser as your starting quarterback, might be how do you feel about possibly having Kevin Hogan as your backup? Because let's face it, it's in all likelihood we might be seeing Kevin Hogan by like the second half of the Steelers game.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
So, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, these guys don't last long for whatever reason. I mean, I think a lot of it is just pure bad luck. But I mean, if you're going to go on that logic, then I think based upon everything that I've heard and seen from Cody Kessler, which is not a whole lot, I think that Kevin Hogan probably gives you more playmaking ability than Kessler does. And it seems pretty obvious at this point that the team isn't committed to Brock Osweiler in any meaningful way at this point. And if he was not able to win the starting job, then I think we are either going to release him outright or try to seek some sort of it would probably be a pittance, but frankly, I mean, it was all about the pick, quote unquote, going back to when the trade originally occurred to bring him to Cleveland, and so whatever you can get for him, I guess, is a bonus.
Yeah, and who knows how this is going to end up working out. Obviously, we're seeing some trade drama with a different Cleveland sports team with Kyrie Irving, and the trade was made, but now Isaiah Thomas failed the physical, and now the Cavs are coming back saying, yeah, we knew he was hurt, but we thought he'd be ready to play. We didn't like the results of the physical. Are you going to throw someone else in, or are we going to avoid the trade? Um, I'm wondering if the Browns are going to end up maybe moving him for a 7th-round pick or something to some quarterback-starved team, maybe the Bills, and just kind of saying, look, we'll throw down a couple $1 million on the salary, trade us a draft pick, and we'll go from there. Well, we'll see what happens.
Heard the Colts being talked about.
Colts, okay.
Not feeling too optimistic about where Andrew Luck is at this point in his recovery from off-season, I believe, shoulder surgery, I believe. So yeah, that's definitely another name that that has been tossed around. So we'll see. But I mean, there's not much to say about Deshaun Kaiser other than he has potential, because we have not seen it in a real NFL game. Um, we have not seen it in anything other than scrimmages. So to really try to uh, sit here and just pontificate on what kind of a quarterback we have in Deshaun Kaiser, we don't know that question. We know that he works hard, but Cody Kessler works hard. We know that he has vastly superior physical skills than Cody Kessler. So that obviously works in his favor. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Is he going to be able to effectively read defenses when the chips are flying and I'm mixing metaphors, when the bullets are flying and there's 3 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter? Those are the types of questions that we simply don't know the answers to right now, and frankly probably won't know any real answers until probably you could sit back if he is able to stay on his feet and stay leading our team for multiple games in a row. Probably by the time the bye week comes around, which is right in the middle of the season for us. I think right after the London game versus Minnesota. I think at that point we'll have a fairly good grasp of what we have with Deshaun Kaiser. Right now, he's potential.
Yeah, and my we still have Joe Thomas, and we upgraded a couple positions on that offensive line in the offseason. I'm confident as anybody else in the NFL should be confident with the team that they have. Let the kid play, because next year we have to make a determination depending on where we finish, and I think we can definitely compete. I think we can win our division. I don't think the Ravens are that good. I don't think the Steelers are that good. And I don't think the Bengals are that good. I think we got a chance. I think we've drafted some severe disruptive playmakers, including Jabril Peppers, including Myles Garrett, including Deshaun Kaiser, and with our new defensive coordinator, I really think that this team, you look at what the defense has been doing, they're pitching shutouts. They're like Cleveland Indians pitchers out there. And if they're keeping it that low, man, we got a shot if we're in any of these games. So
I agree. We can if we can hold the other team without scoring touchdowns in consecutive weeks, you're doing something right defensively. And you can say it's not always starters versus starters, but the fact that they are of just a higher ilk of competition this year than what we were in the preseason last year. You see guys still playing in the fourth quarter of these games that are legit NFL players this year, and that hasn't been the case the last few years. So, we've. I think that certainly is the bigger conversation for what it's going to be. How are we going to be successful in 2017? The answer is the defense, defense, and you throw in some solid and intelligent quarterback play. You take a few chances when you need to as he gets better as the season rolls on, a la Dak Prescott. You start being able to take a few more risks and put more on the back of your young quarterback. But for right now, let's really focus on some of those defensive pieces. Myles Garrett continues to look good from everything that I have heard. I can't wait to see him in the fourth quarter of that Steeler game after really wearing at that left tackle for 3 quarters. That's the whole thing that you don't get to see as much with a pass rush, and with the running game as well on the other side of the ball. The two things that we'd like to think are our strengths that develop as a game goes on. Trying to say, we're not going to have a good running game because we didn't run well in the first quarter. Well, you want to be able to have a lead in the fourth quarter where you can then run the ball effectively against a defense that has been on the field a long time, and you can really pound it down their throat. That's where those two offensive linemen that we brought in from Green Bay and from Cincinnati come into play, and that's also on the other side of the ball. Where if you have Myles Garrett, who's still wearing away at a left tackle, who just from a physical standpoint can't hang with a guy who has Myles Garrett's skill set, well, then you're going to start seeing Myles Garrett getting double, triple teamed. So what happens there? Now Emmanuel Ogbah is becoming more of a factor. Now you have some of that interior rush happening a little bit more, seeing a few more sacks from the linebackers. So that's the biggest thing, in my opinion, is seeing what some of these guys can do in the fourth quarter, where we're really starting to chip away at the defenses of those opposing players. That's what I'm most excited about from the defense and from our running game.
So you're kind of talking about the longevity of what it's going to mean when you got Crowell pounding and the offensive line pounding and Deshaun Kaiser running occasionally, which is keeping the linebackers honest and making the defensive line chase you around a little bit. By the time you get to the third, fourth quarter, you're hoping to see some fatigue out of the other team. Would you say a little bit somewhat similar to what we saw out of Conor McGregor against Floyd Mayweather? He came out looking good, and then 5-6 rounds in, the hands started to drop. He got sloppy. He wasn't really defending himself, and he just got worn out by someone who was playing the long game versus someone who was trying to make a couple quick hits and spent all their capital in the first couple rounds instead of stretching it out for the long term, more of the sprint instead of the marathon. Would you say that's a fair analogy?
I think that's pretty fair, and I certainly think that we have some players who are going to be able to be effective at that. So, once again, Myles Garrett has been nothing but impressive, and he's almost like the afterthought in all of this because of the fact that we're talking so much about Kaiser. Let's face it, Kaiser was picked in the middle of the second round, and Jabril Peppers has been a major story in our camp, making plays all the time, becoming a leader on that defense. You have David Njoku, I think, is the one. So if you say that 3 out of your first 4 picks are coming in, making an impact right away, I'd say that that's probably pretty darn good. But definitely, it seems like David Njoku is the guy who is still going to need some time to try to figure out how to play in the NFL. That's for sure. But Garrett is ready. Peppers is ready. Peppers is going to contribute multiple ways. I think having him back there at free safety exclusively, not worrying about him playing offense at all this first year. Or at all. And then having him make some exciting returns in the punt game. We've got something with some of these guys. We have more young studs now than we have had in a long time.
Yeah, and I want you to kind of talk about that. You brought up Jabril Peppers there, and I talk about what you've seen out of the new defensive coordinator and the schemes and how they're using players in maybe a different way than we're used to on the Browns. Because I got to tell you, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
Well, the general, I guess the line of thought is that with Jabril Peppers, you had a player who in college worked a variety of different spots on the football field, and in fact, as a senior, in his final year at Michigan, he played, like a linebacker, kind of like a monster back sort of role, and there was a lot of talk that he might fill a similar void in the Browns defense, kind of similar to what Greg Williams did with Mark Barron when he had him there with the Rams. Now, with some of the injuries to some of the safeties that the Browns have been facing, Jabril Peppers has gotten a lot more time as kind of like that center fielder. And, sort of some of the talk was that here was a guy who was a linebacker in his last year of college and never actually, if I remember correctly, he never actually had an interception in college.
He had one against the Buccaneers.
Or maybe it wasn't that he just didn't have any this this previous year.
Okay.
But either way, the point that I'm trying to make is that people are saying, oh, this guy doesn't have the ball skills to play free safety. You got to be a ball hawk. You got to be able to get back and find that ball. This guy is a punt returner and is trying to be a punt returner in the NFL. And so far from what you've seen in the preseason, he looks pretty good at it. Catching punts is, takes about as much ball skills as any type of skilled activity that you would do on an NFL football field. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for him at all.
Yeah, I mean, he picked off, he had an interception against the Buccaneers, and it was great seeing that defense because leading up to the game when they named Kaiser the starter, I was excited because that's a high octane Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Jameis Winston, they added Deshaun Jackson,
Mike Evans.
Yep, Mike Evans has
Yeah.
been there for a few years. O.J. Howard coming in at tight end. Doug Martin looking a little better.
Did that O.J. Howard do anything on Saturday night? Because he was one that a lot of people were talking about as a possible number 12 pick for the Browns way back when.
Well, I mean, nobody did a whole lot. The defense kept the whole team in check. No, I wasn't blown away by anything. Maybe tight end is one of those positions. A lot of times you hear people say it takes them a year or two to really figure out the position. Maybe Njoku will be the same. Maybe someone will break out. I don't know. But no, I didn't see too much from him during the game. But yeah, I mean, watching Greg Williams in that defense, it was really nice seeing that defense kind of just being the cornerstone, being the anchor of the team that's going to lead us. And we're taking a question. A couple of questions are coming in, and if you haven't left your question in the Facebook group, type your question below. I'm going to ask it to Brandon Odell, our special guest, doing our 2017 Browns season preview show here on the Unhappy Hour. Question from Jay Mallory. He's asking, do you believe we will have a top 5 defense this year? He thinks that we will. How does our depth at defensive line stack up against others?
Okay. Top 5 defense, no. I think that's a pretty tall order to go from. I mean, where have we been the last couple of years? 30th, 31st. I mean, and to say that you make a jump into the top 5. If you just rattle off the names of the top defenses in the NFL, give me 5 that come to your mind right now. Go.
Texans, Vikings, Patriots. Top 5.
Broncos.
Yes, Broncos.
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle.
So we're already at 5 right now.
Yeah.
And we haven't even, and we've probably forgotten a couple of teams, at least one team that is probably was was actually in the top 5 last year.
Right.
So I think top 5 is a pretty hard sell. I think for us to be able to make a jump from say 30th or something to number 12 or somewhere between 12 and 14 in there, upper echelon. I think that's a huge jump. And then, you hear about that 2018, that's when we're really going to be rolling. Well, that's when some of those guys are a little bit older. Jabril going into his second year, Garrett's going into his second year. Then you really see these guys starting to gel and to, really explode. And that's when you could really talk about them being the top 5 defense. I would love to say that could happen this year, but I don't see that kind of a huge step forward taking place in year 1 of the Greg Williams era. Not to say that they can't make a step forward, but to make that big of one, I think that would be asking a lot. As far as the defensive line and its depth, I think everything we've seen tells us the depth is pretty good. The fact that they released Desmond Bryant, let's not get him confused with Des Bryant, but the fact that they released Desmond Bryant outright says something about how they feel about some of their younger guys. That Trevon Coley is a name that continuously gets floated around as a young, undrafted guy that has just really come out of nowhere and really, even with Shelton being out right now, The defense is not missing a beat, and might be better off with Coley than with Shelton, frankly. But that's one position where, if you talk about having a an overflow of talent, um, there are a couple of guys on that line that probably will end up not making the team. That that are they are going to be contributors for other NFL teams. You know, they're not just going to be on a practice squad. They will be contributors for other NFL teams. So maybe one of those guys, maybe you're able to guys for a conditional pick, or maybe you're able to put together some kind of a package to acquire. What they really need is that other veteran receiver. They need that third wide receiver, that person who can really come in there and move the chains on third down. I don't know if they have that consistent guy. They got rid of Barnage, hoping that Njoku and DeValve could be that guy. Maybe one of them still can be, but I just that would be lovely to see them bring in a new receiver to round out that group and be able to do it at the expense of a defensive lineman that maybe wasn't going to make the team, even though he's a pretty solid player. So, I feel good about the defense on all three levels. I mean, there are a few weak links, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think that if you are able to see a dramatic improvement in how well this defense does from last year to this year, then I think with another loaded draft with all those picks that we have next year, you can go and you can get another receiver or two out of those. What do we have? 5 picks in the first 2 rounds, and I think at that point, then we're really rolling.
Yeah. Let me ask you a frivolous question from Bob. He's asking if we can trade the lousy drum line for some cheerleaders.
Well, this is what I'll say, and and then probably have to start wrapping things up here because we're running. I'm starting to run a little bit up against my own clock here.
Yeah.
The cheerleaders, I think, are a great idea. However, the drum line, when you go to a game, I think that they're a really cool way to get the players and the crowd kind of pumped up. You feel that beat going, and it kind of gets your heart pumping a little bit, and really gets you fired up as the players are coming out of the tunnel. I don't think that a dance team or cheerleaders at this point are going to have the same kind of impact on the fans or the players. It'd be more of a novelty kind of a thing rather than serving any kind of a real purpose to get the crowd more engaged.
Yeah, that's fair. I love drums. I'm a drummer. I have been my whole life, and I like that component. I love anything percussion, so I'm not against that. Except I definitely agree that the Brownies would be a great name for a dance team with the Browns. Just a couple more questions here. We'll fly through them, Brandon. We'll let you get going. Tom is asking, realistically, what do you think the record's going to be this year?
I think that they, or at least let me say, I hope that they will be improved from last season. I think that injuries are going to play a big part in our success or failure this year. With that said, if we have a relatively healthy situation at quarterback and with some of those key contributors on defense, keep Myles Garrett healthy, keep Emmanuel Ogbah healthy, keep Kirksey, keep Collins healthy, keep Peppers healthy. You can keep those guys together and playing well with each other on a consistent basis, then I think that somewhere between that 6 to 8 win range is probably pretty likely for us. Because let's face it, I think that Kaiser is going to struggle. He's a young rookie. He's going to have some really bad moments. But I think that the goal is to also see him have some of those aha moments as well, where that light bulb goes off and you really say to yourself, man, this guy he has it and he gets it. So between 6 to 8 wins, I think is probably a pretty fair window. I think that 7-9 team that we had a couple of years ago. I mean, we thought that they should have been better than 7-9 with that fade that they had down the stretch.
Yep.
Um, but
we were in first place, 5-6 games in.
You'd like to say that this defense is better than that defense, and the offense was just kind of so-so. So 7-9, I guess, might be a good spot to aim for in year 2 of this rebuild.
Yeah, and I just got to say, we got to know who our quarterback is, because there's a lot more quarterbacks coming out next year in the draft. We got to know if we're going to use extra picks to move up and take a Sam Darnold or somebody that we really like, because we're kind of sitting like the Boston Celtics on a ton of draft picks, a ton of capital to move and wheel and deal what we want. Either this guy Kaiser's going to be the QB, or we got to go get him next year. So you got to play him.
Last year at this time, Kaiser was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick. So, who knows how Sam Darnold is going to be this year, or what was the guy's name, Josh Dobson from UCLA. I mean, some of these